Oh, hi there. Caught me in my yard, just doing a little yard work. I'm thinking of putting in a garden, but I have some concerns. How do I know if my soil is safe? See, the problem is I live in an area that may have been exposed to arsenic and lead from the old Arsenic factory in Tacoma. You see, back in 1912, the American Smelting and Refining Company, known as Arsenic, began copper smelting. Arsenic and lead were byproducts of the smelting process, and unfortunately, were released from the factory's smokestack. Arsenic and lead settled in areas of Pierce, King, and Thurston Counties. The factory operated for nearly 100 years, and during that time, contaminants slowly built up in the soil. We know that high levels of arsenic and lead can be toxic and dangerous to your health. Over time, continuous exposure even to just a small amount of arsenic and lead can cause some pretty serious health issues. So when we say small amounts, what are we talking about? Well, think of it this way. The health department recommends taking simple precautions when arsenic levels are above 20 parts per million. That's about this much soil contaminated with only this much arsenic. We're talking about serious stuff here. It doesn't take much to create a potential health risk. Arsenic has been used as rat poison, and lead has been banned from all kinds of products, including paint and gasoline. When lead gets into a child's body, it can cause permanent damage to their ability to learn new things, can affect the way they behave, and harm their ability to grow normally. And scientists have linked long-term contact with arsenic with a variety of other health problems, including heart disease, diabetes, and cancer of the bladder, lung, skin, kidney, liver, and prostate. Whether a person develops a health problem or not often depends on the amount of arsenic and lead taken into that person's body over time. Doctors can link health problems in children, such as learning difficulties and growth problems, to high levels of lead in a child's blood. Many of these health problems, though, affect lots of people and can have other causes. While all health issues aren't linked to arsenic and lead in the soil, why risk it? Play it safe for yourself and your family by taking some simple precautions. But before anyone panics, let's talk to my neighbor. It turns out she had elevated levels of arsenic and lead in her yard. Let's see how she dealt with the problem. Hello, neighbor. How's that garden coming along?
Hello, Professor. It's going well. I've heard you're interested in putting in a garden too.
I am, but I'm wondering if my soil is safe. I understand you found arsenic and lead in your soil, but it seems you've taken care of the problem.
Well, not completely, but we've taken some steps to minimize our contact with the contaminated soil.
So tell me, how did you know that your soil had high levels of arsenic and lead?
Well, since we live in one of the areas of risk, we decided to have our soil tested. We were particularly concerned about our children. Young children are at a greater risk because they're more likely to play in soil, put dirty fingers in their mouths, and eat with dirty hands. Plus, they're still growing and developing. Their bodies are more at risk of being damaged from these chemicals. Even playing inside where polluted soil has been tracked in from the outside can be a health risk. So we decided to take some precautions to help minimize our risk. Besides, it was a great excuse to re-landscape.
Wow. I guess I should do something at my place too. If you've got contaminated soil, I'm sure I do too.
Well, not necessarily so. But if you live in an area that was affected by the Arsenic factory, it's best to assume that you have elevated levels of lead and arsenic in your soil, unless you have it tested and find out that you don't. Your risk goes up if you have a home built before 1980, if you have bare patches of dirt, if your property hasn't been re-landscaped in the last 20 years, and if you have family members or pets that play or work outside in the yard. Another factor is the wind. You just never know how Mother Nature distributed the contaminants. It can vary greatly from one area to another.
So what steps have you taken in your yard?
We looked around our yard and saw things we could do to help minimize our contact with the contaminated soil. Our kids love to garden. They think it's fun to watch the plants grow, and they even enjoy being active in the garden. Besides, I know fresh foods are healthier, they taste better, and they save us money. But the best part? Our kids will eat foods grown in the garden that they wouldn't touch at the store. Chard is their latest favorite, and it grows great in Washington. We love our garden, so we converted it to raised beds after we learned we had elevated arsenic and lead in our yard.
So, tell me what you did here.
Well, first we laid down heavy-duty landscape fabric to cover the original soil, and then we constructed our beds on top of it. We use natural wood for the boxes, but you can also use stone, concrete, or other masonry products. But if you can, stay away from painted boards, treated lumber, or railroad ties. They can contain arsenic and lead or other things you don't want in your garden.
So how much soil should you add?
You'll want to get clean topsoil. The more the better. At least 12 inches is ideal.
So the idea is to raise your produce in soil that you know is safe and keep the original soil and the new imported topsoil separated with a barrier.
Exactly. And another important thing that we did was cover our bare patches of dirt. Again, you'll want to lay down a heavy-duty landscape fabric over the top of the original soil and then lay the ground covering over that. 2 to 3 inches thick is ideal. You can use beauty bark, wood chips, gravel, or even cover with sod. The idea is to put a barrier between you and the contaminated soil.
I guess what I need to do is to find out if my soil is contaminated. So, should I get my soil tested? It's a decision I'll have to make, but if I decide not to, I'll be sure to take precautions and treat my soil as though it does have contaminants. When arsenic and lead settled to the ground, they bonded to the soil and stuck like glue. They're not going anywhere unless the soil goes too. If your yard was contaminated, the arsenic and lead is still likely to be there within the top 6 inches of the soil. The good thing about the contaminants bonding with the soil is that arsenic and lead doesn't usually get into the food that we grow. But it can get on the food that we grow in contaminated soil if we don't wash off all the dirt. For that reason, it is always better in these areas to build a raised garden bed and purchase dirt that you know is safe. And it's still very important to always wash vegetables and fruits well before we eat them. As we know, arsenic and lead can cause serious health issues, but only if they make it into our bodies. And the 2 main ways for that to happen are inhaling it, usually in the form of contaminated dust, or eating or placing things that are contaminated in our mouths. But being around or even touching arsenic or lead is okay, as long as you take precautions to prevent it from entering your body.
That's right. Other healthy actions are leaving shoes outside, vacuuming, and keeping pets clean. It's really just common sense stuff. So what do you know about schools and child care centers and parks? I've been concerned about my children playing at the park.
The Washington State Department of Ecology is already on top of it. They've taken hundreds of soil samples looking for arsenic and lead from nearly every school, licensed child care, and park play area. As they find contaminated soil, they are removing it or placing a barrier above the soil. But be aware, they're only cleaning up the main play areas and not all parks have been cleaned up yet. They're also not digging up the forested or wooded areas, so some parks could have contaminated soil.
So take precautions by washing your hands before you eat. And hand sanitizers might get rid of germs, but they can't get rid of arsenic and lead and other pollutants.
So scrub your hands thoroughly with soap and water. It's also a good idea to wash dirty clothes after visiting a park. I know the parks and schools are being taken care of, but I really have no idea about my property. If I wanted to get my soil tested, how would I go about doing it?
Well, one option is to sample the soil yourself and take it to a private lab for testing. Or, depending on where you live, the health department may be able to do the testing for you. I would recommend going to dirtalert.info for more information. So to summarize, if you live in Pierce, King, or Thurston County, it's best to assume the areas you visit and the soil around your home is contaminated.
Exactly.
And regardless of where you live, lots of research has been done to show that dirt and dust contain many things other than arsenic and lead that can be harmful to your health, especially your children's. Don't wait. Take action now. It's for the health of you and your family.
For more information about the Dirt Alert program and other healthy actions, visit dirtalert.info or contact your local health department. Dirt Alert is brought to you by the Washington State Department of Ecology.